Hello world, welcome back to the Razor RC, and yes, it's here, the Traxxas XRT. This is a, 1/6 scale, 8S capable, 4-wheel drive monster truggy or truggy, whatever you want to call it. It just came out today, so fortunate to be able to pick one of these up from my local hobby shop. Sells for $1,000 here in the United States, quite a bit of money. I think same price as the X-Max, of which it is kind of the smaller brother, I guess, of the X-Max. So yeah, we're going to be taking a look at this, quick look at the vehicle, and then also running it, seeing it actually performs on its first run. And yeah, let's kind of take a look at it. First off, it does come with the TQI radio, just like every other Traxxas vehicle. Decent radio, multi-function knob that you can adjust to set to whatever you want, and also steering trim, a couple buttons up here up top, a little on-off button to tell you when it's powered on. 2.4 gigahertz, 4 AA's not included, and you can add a Traxxas link thing, which I think is very useful. You definitely will want to set your endpoints out of the box and also calibrate the ESC. I highly recommend you do that with every vehicle. I do have a video on that I will put up here so you can check it out and learn how to do that. I will be doing that, of course. Also includes some stickers. Looks like some numbers you can put on your wing if you want to race this thing. So for those of you not familiar, RT is their race truck designation for Traxxas. So back in the day, back in the 90s, when Traxxas was actually racing, they had an SRT, which was their stadium race truck, basically the predecessor to the Rustler. The Rustler is basically just based off their SRT. So this is intended, I guess, to be a race truck. So it's the XRT, the X-Max says race truck, and we're going to take a look at. Here's the body. It does have a couple of scoops. Honestly, it kind of looks like a dirt scoop to me. Underneath, you can see the basically the quick release style attachment function. So pretty much 4 clips that will snap into the shock towers or the body mounts here. So you do have to pop them all out, but reasonably quick. Seems like a little bit of improvement over some of their previous vehicles, like the Sledge, which only had in the back and could still kind of flop off. Here's the truck itself. Pretty much an LCD X-Max is how I would describe it. A lot of the components are shared with the X-Max. The shocks are a little bit different. They are longer in the rear, a little bit shorter in the front. They obviously have the truggy style wheels and tires. So this is a pretty hard compound, kind of an in-between dirt and street type tread pattern, I would say. Very, very hard. It's not going to balloon that much, I don't think. Does require 2 3S or 2 4S battery packs. Does have dual battery trays, so you will need 2 batteries. Traxxas ID connectors, which are meant for Traxxas batteries, but any battery will fit in here. I'm going to swap these out for EC5 or IC5 connectors because that's what I run. A big wing in the back, a little bit different style body than the X-Max, but essentially what's down the middle is the same as the X-Max. Same motor, same ESC, same receiver. They did add this sort of V8 looking motor fans here on the engine or motor with the giant heat sink. So kind of a different design, dual fans, pretty interesting. Pretty short motor wires here to the ESC, very compact. Everything is kind of slammed down in the middle to make a much lower center of gravity, the weight really down low. Still has the aluminum hollow tube down the middle for the center drive shaft, but does have steel spur gear, steel center differential in the middle, and then differentials out to the ends, front and rear. Double shear suspension mounts for the shocks, so you can see a very beefy design. The X-Max is pretty much one of the most durable RC cars you can buy. In my opinion, the 2 weaknesses are the center drive shaft, so hopefully that will hold up. Because that did have a tendency to bend when you sent this thing super huge. I do have an X-Max as well, and that was pretty much the one area I would bend a lot. I've probably gone through like 3 of those or so. And then also the hubs had fairly small bearing on the end, so I think they did redesign the hubs a little bit. They also redesigned them recently for the X-Max to have larger sized bearings so they don't slam and get destroyed when you land this thing, because on huge jumps, again, you could crush the ball bearings within your bearings and then they would basically seize up and be an issue. Double wishbone suspension front rear, fixed links on the toe. So there's no adjustment on that. It looks okay out of the box. No camber adjustment as well. Pretty much all the suspension adjustments are fixed. Captured hinge pins front and rear, which is nice. Aluminum shocks with plastic caps. Threaded adjusters front and rear, different size springs, so looks like more progressive on the rear and more linear in the front, which sounds about right. This thing should jump and fly pretty well. Dual battery trays with kind of the quick disconnect type system, so just kind of pop it in, flip it over, you can get at your batteries that way, snap back in. I think it does include some foam, so you can space it out a little bit if you have different size batteries. Fairly slim Nerf bars here on the side, a little bit of protection. Integrated servo saver on the servo or steering rack. Does have the funky X-Max size servo, plastic geared. Fairly slow. I think it's about 350 inches of torque, so decent torque. Not the best servo, and a little bit difficult to mount a different size servo in there, but you can get the metal gear version, and there are other servos I think that will fit. So yeah, very much a Traxxas style vehicle. Does have a wheelie bar in the back. Fairly sort of contoured chassis here on the bottom. So the point of that is that as the vehicle kind of rolls, it doesn't catch. It actually gives you a little more clearance as the vehicle is going through the corner. So I do think this is pretty much a race vehicle. It is lower in the middle, which is what Traxxas likes to do with all their LCG vehicles. The Slash is the same way. It's actually extra low in the middle, much more than a normal vehicle would be, but that way you can use it for racing, you can use it for rally cars, all sorts of different types of vehicles where you want that low slung type chassis. Front minimal kick gut, which is typical for a four-wheel drive vehicle. Very beefy arms front and rear. As I mentioned, they are the wide X-Max arms. That was introduced a few months ago that as an option for your X-Max, but I don't think it was particularly popular. Some cutouts here for any rocks that get stuck in the steering rack to fall out, which is nice. It looks like it's fairly smooth, so stuff won't tend to go in there. A little bit of issue on some other vehicles that have a plastic chassis, and I'm looking at you, Arma. What else is there to say? Yeah, centralized electronics, should drive pretty neutral. It does have the cush drive, which is basically like an elastomer mounted spur gear to give a little bit of give on the spur gear. So there's no slipper clutch or anything like that. The center differential, I think with 20 million weight oil, does give a tiny bit, but the elastomer, or what they call the cush drive, does give a little extra protection on the drivetrain. I think the drivetrain, I think this will be totally fine. No issues with my X-Max, very robust system. Some people are going to try to put in more power, and there's not a whole ton of room for that. As you can see, the ESC is basically right up against the motor. I believe, I forget the size of the can motor, but yeah, it's not particularly large. Not a lot of options unless you get some sort of different size motor mount. So yeah, this thing looks pretty good. We're going to take this thing out and bash it and see how it performs. And yeah, let's check this thing out. It's been a while since I've driven an X-Max, so quite used to the scale. Jump level. Brakes are good. Not super strong. You guys probably have seen this place before. Came off a little sideways. That wing doesn't look good. What? Okay, the wing broke off. I didn't even crash it, so not sure what's going on there. think that's pretty high. 20 feet plus. Body. Yep, battery unplugged a little. Quick temp check. 70, 95. Like a rocket. They call it SpaceX. Oh. Oh, battery again. Okay, definitely cannot backflip it off of that. I was trying. Was not gonna make it. I think a motor wire came unplugged. So here's a little tip for you. Spread open these like 6-prong connectors. I just stick a torque bit or driver in there, star shaped, so every little edge will get in between the prongs. Spread them open more evenly. Okay, sun's come out. Sun's out. Sun's out. This Mac suspension travel is, you know, it's not really meant for this. One thing I will say is that the battery wires are really short on this thing, so maybe you want to go with like a longer crossover cable, because yeah, it's super short. I didn't chop the wires at all. This is how it comes. So I just changed the connector, and there's just not hardly any slack. Well, that's gonna do it for the Traxxas XRT. The only thing it seems like I broke is this wing mount, or yeah, I guess wing mount. That's kind of important, so I will need to replace that. Otherwise, seems okay. You know, this thing is really not a high jump contestant, maybe a long jump contestant, but yeah, going straight up in the air, jumping it 20 feet high, landing it flat on the ground. Not a ton of suspension travel. It's really more of a low altitude, or at least more horizontal vehicle rather than a straight up vertical vehicle. So tires did not come unglued, so that seems pretty nice. Electronics survive. The wires are really short, so make sure you have decent battery leads. Maybe open up those connectors. I think they need that. Heat wise, no issues. It does actually drive a bit like a Max or X Max in terms of like power delivery. It's definitely the same, but it's lower to the ground, wider obviously, doesn't roll as much, doesn't actually steer all that well either. I'm somewhat surprised, though. I think the wide arms keeps it more stable, but the X-Max actually steers better in my opinion. These partly due to the tires, but partly due to the X-Max actually rolls a bit, allows the tires to kind of dig in, allow you to make direction changes. This one just kind of flat and like a pancake, and it tends to, you know, just kind of slide, understeer, all that stuff. So better tires I think would help a little bit. They're not that bad, but they're not really great, even on today, a reasonably cool day with a little more traction than normal. So yeah, what else does there say? Body didn't fly off. Motor seems to run cool, and yeah, it seems like a decent truck overall, just for its intended purposes. Kind of what I would say you gotta be aware of. Is it better than X-Max? I don't know. One run is not enough to tell, but it's certainly somewhat similar and then somewhat different. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.